Hi there and welcome to JCB Tools. My name's Adrian and today we're going to look at this pressure washer. Now this particular one is the JCB-PW for pressure washer 7532P, P standing for a petrol driven engine model. So I'm going to open the box, lay the contents on the table so you can see exactly what you get. So I've laid the contents out on the table and as you can see we have the main frame itself with the engine and the pump in it. There is going to be some assembly but I'll take you through each step. So of course we have the two wheels, we have the pressure hose here which is a heavy duty hose, the heavy duty lance here which is in two parts, we'll show you how to put that together. I have a set of various tips here, there are 5 of them, they fit in the front of the machine, we shall show you that, with different angles, water inlet fitting, spark plug spanner, and then there's a bag here with all the nuts, bolts and fastenings that we're going to need when we assemble it. And then finally, we have the user manuals. Now we do recommend that you read the user manuals thoroughly before use. So there are actually 3 of them with this model, so it's all covered. First of all, we have the one for the machine itself, how to operate your pressure washer, the do's and don'ts, and how it operates. Secondly, there's one that refers to the engine specifically, what you need to know about the engine. And thirdly, there's one relating to the pump as well. So we've got it covered in all angles here. And of course we have the upper handle as well, very simple to fit, we'll show you that. So there's a few tools you're going to need for assembly of the machine. Now I happen to have a 10mm socket, a 10mm spanner, 2 spanners would do fine. And I do have also an adjustable spanner here, which is slightly larger, we'll use this for the wheel nuts. And it opens up to around 25mm, that should be more than enough. If you do happen to have the correct spanner for the nut, feel free to use the correct spanner. Most people would have an adjustable spanner that will open big enough. That's why I'm demonstrating with this. So, I've laid the contents of the accessories bag on the table here. So you should have these 3 yellow brackets, 2 axles here with 2 washers each and 2 nuts. Those are for the wheels, we'll come on to those next. 2 of the axle retaining R-clips. There are 2 hand wheels, 6 bolts with washers and nuts, and then 2 slightly larger bolts as well. So this will all become apparent as we put it together. So I've got one of the axles here. As you can see, there's a hole in it here, and there's a hole in the inside face of the tube that it fits in. So I'll just fit the axle in, line up the holes, and then fit the R-clip down in, and that's locked the axle in position. So at this point now we can fit the one wheel. The other side is going to be an exact mirror image of this. So as you can see, there's a flush side of the wheel, and there's a side with a larger boss. So if I just undo the nut, I'll leave one washer on, I'll fit the large boss side onto the axle, then the washer back on, then the nut back on, and I'll screw it up so far. Now this is the point where I'll get the adjustable spanner and tighten this up, but I'll show you how to tighten it. Okay, so I'm going to tighten up this nut clockwise. It's a conventional thread, and I'll tighten it right up. It's not going to be tight, it is a nylock nut, and you can see it's stopped. Now, of course, that's going to be over tight because the wheel won't rotate. So I'm just going to go back 1 flat. There. That now allows the wheel to rotate without it being loose, and the nylock will stop the nut coming undone. So the next thing we're going to do, that both wheels are in place, is put the upper handle on. So it slips over the 2 lugs here, no problem at all. And then what I'll do is take one of the larger bolts, and you'll see there's got a hexagon head, and on the other side of the tube here there's a little hexagon that it'll drop into that stops it rotating, and then I'll just fit one of the hand wheels in position. I'll put that one on loosely, just do the same on the other side. Okay. And that's it, that's the handle fitted, and as you can see it's very quick to remove if you want to compact it down for storage. So as you can see, we're going to fit these yellow hooks next. There are 3 sizes, large, medium and small. So let's start with the small hook and I'll show you where that one goes. Okay, so I've taken 2 of the 6 remaining bolts, taken a nut and washer off each, so I've got 2 of these bolts. I'll fit the bolts through the holes in the bracket and through the holes here on the front of the frame at the lower edge. Just line up the bolts through the 2 holes, and then on the back of each one I'll fit a washer, and then just loosely fit a nut on each. Okay, once I've got them in place, you can either use 2 spanners. I happen to have a ratchet and a spanner just to hold the nut on the outside here. Again, these are nylock nuts, they're stainless fittings. Tighten down on the 2 bolts and make sure they're securely in place. Now it is worthwhile, after you've been using your machine for a while, just to go around and check all the fastenings that you fit. So that's the lower bracket. We'll move on to the upper bracket on the handle at the top. Okay, so middle-sized bracket, exactly the same procedure. 2 bolts through the handle here. Pop them through the holes so they come out the other side. Fit a washer on each, fit a nut on each, and tighten them up as I've just shown you. So again, the third and largest bracket. Into the pipe, 2 bolts again. Locate them through the holes in the pipework. Washers and nuts on the inside. It is worth noting that all 3 of these brackets, this L shape, are pointing up on all of them. So the unit, as I described earlier, comes with these 5 different tips for the lance, and they are 0 degrees, 10 degrees, 15 and 25 degrees. So obviously the 0 degrees would give you a very fine point, basically a single point jet of water. And again, 10 degrees, slightly wider, 15 and 25, wider and wider jets of water. Obviously you would only use the pinpoint one if you were removing paint off brickwork or something like that. And obviously the wider the jet, the more delicate the nozzle. The narrower the angle, the more intrusive the nozzle. So be very careful when using a powerful pressure washer such as this. You wouldn't typically use a 0 degrees on car paint work. You may actually damage the paint. You'd use wider jets for that sort of thing. And then finally, we have the black nozzle. So this is the low pressure nozzle. So if we're using detergent, we're sucking detergent, traffic film remover, whatever detergent you were using through the unit, you would always use the black tip to allow the detergent to be brought through. And these all store quite nicely in the front of the machine, as you can see. And they all store and keep in there quite nicely. So the final fitting that comes in the bag is this hose connector. So your typical garden hose connecting fittings will fit onto here for connecting up. Now if you hold the nut, screw it in clockwise until you can screw it no more, hold it tight and then just nip the nut up. That'll be enough to seal this fitting up. So you just connect straight up with your garden hose, making sure there's no kinks in it, and that's how the water gets supplied to the machine. Just one thing of note, if you find at any stage that you get a lack of water coming through, you'll see that there's a little strainer filter in here which can be pulled out and cleaned. So one problem we often get is that if this filter gets blocked with debris from a garden hose or what have you, then it's quite common that this could become blocked. So just be wary that there is a little filter in there, a little thumb filter. So I'll just fit that back on again. And there we are. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the lance comes in 2 pieces. You simply push the rod down onto there, screw the hand wheel anti-clockwise. My hand is fine, that's now tight, and we can pull the little rubber sleeve up and over, and that's the 2 halves of the lance connected. So the pressure hose, all quick release fittings on this. It has a male end and a female end, the brass coloured end here. Again, if I just take the lance connects straight into this fitting, pull back the outer sleeve, push in, release, and that's connected. To disconnect, pull back the outer sleeve, lance comes out. It's as simple as that. So that's the connection made. And again, if I go to the other end, you'll see on the pump here, exactly the same method. Push back the collar, push in, release the collar. That's it, connected. When you want to release, push back the collar, pull it out. Never try and remove these fittings when there's pressure in the system, when you're using it. Always make sure that you've switched the engine off, you've released any residual pressure out of the gun so there's no more water flowing, ideally turned off the water at the mains. Then that is the point where you can disconnect. When there's pressure inside them, it would be dangerous to try and disconnect. The pump is shipped to you with pump oil in it. And it does have this red plug, so I'll just pull this bag off the top and you'll see this is a transport plug. There's no breather in it, and it seals the pump should the box be upside down, anything like that, and it stops oil coming out. In the little bag here we have the breathable plug that needs to be fitted. So there's the breathable plug. I'll just unscrew the transit plug, the little red plug. Normally only hand tight these. I can take that out, fit the breathable plug, and screw it into place. And there we are. So it's very important that we fit the breather plug. It allows air within the pump to, when it expands, to escape so that it's not blowing seals on the pump. Okay, so we're coming back to the hooks. Your hose stores there when not in use for transport, and your lance stores there. So it's all compact and you keep everything together without losing anything. So, for obvious reasons, the machine ships to you without engine oil in the engine, so it's vitally important we do that, and obviously no petrol in it. So petrol cap here on the top, unscrews, conventional, anti-clockwise. It's got a retaining chain so you can't lose it, and we'd fill the petrol tank here. Now when we fill the petrol tank, it's important not to overfill it, and you will see in the top there's a little red ring. Don't fill the tank any higher than the top level of that little red ring, and there's actually a strainer in there as well. Once we've filled it with fuel, if we spilt any, make sure we wipe it all up with some cloth, something like that, and let any excess fuel evaporate. Once we've done that, we can put the lid on, and obviously only fuel the machine in a well-vented area. And when you tighten the cap, it's got a clutch mechanism, so when you hear the click, it's tight. And again, unscrews easy. That's it, it's down firm. So, engine oil. This is the most crucial bit. Now, these engines do come with an automatic oil level protection. So if the oil level is low, it will kill the spark and the engine won't start. So that's a good thing. But we still need to ensure that we've got the right amount of engine oil in the engine. So you will see a dipstick on this side. There's also one on the other side. They're both the same, so don't worry about filling both sides. One side does both. The two dipsticks are when the engine is used in different applications. So I can just unscrew the dipstick, and you'll see it does have an actual dipstick on it, but there is an easy way to gauge it. So when you fill this with engine oil, have it on a nice flat surface, gradually fill it nice and slowly with engine oil, and you want to bring it so that the oil level comes just below this edge here. So you'll see it on this sort of level. You can measure it with a dipstick, but the optimal level would be dead flush or on the weir point of this oil filling hole. When you get it to there, you obviously can't get any more in without it coming back out. It'll be on nice level ground. Replace the dipstick, and that's the oil filled. Okay, so to protect the lifespan of your pump, there's a little procedure we must do when starting up these machines. And it's the same for all pressure washers, whether you've got electric ones, whatever they are. To protect the pump, these pumps are typically water cooled. So the water flowing through them is what keeps them cool. So what you need to do is connect up your hose pipe, turn on at the mains, and you'll find water will flow through. I haven't got the pipe on at the moment. And then pull the trigger on your lance, and when you'll see that a lot of air will come through your hose. Once the air has stopped and coming out of the end of the lance, so I'll fit a random nozzle in the end, which I haven't shown. Again, same quick release fittings. Pull back the sleeve to remove and refit a nozzle. Simple as that. So let the water flow without any air. You'll hear it spit and bubble out the end. Once you've got no more air coming out, that's the point where we know we've purged the system of air and it's ready to run. So on the fuel tank side of the engine here, we have the on-off switch. That way is off, that way is on. It's written on the switch. So to turn it off that way, we would need to turn it on. So we'll go around to the carburetor now. So you'll see on the back of the carburetor, we have these two levers. The lower lever is the fuel tap. To the left, as I've got it here, is turning the fuel off. So whenever you've finished with the machine or you're transporting it at all, always turn the fuel off at the tap. So to start the machine, we would need to turn the fuel on. Obviously, with a brand new machine that's never had fuel in, we will need to leave this tap on for a minute or two just to let fuel flow from the fuel tank into the float bowl of the carburetor. So once we've waited that couple of minutes, it wouldn't be needed to be done as long as you hadn't run it out of petrol, but as long as we waited that couple of minutes with the fuel tap on, we're ready then to start. So let's come to the top lever, which is the choke lever. So on an initial start from cold, we would push the choke lever to the left. This restricts the airflow, enriches the mixture and allows the engine to start readily. Once the engine has started, we could very quickly turn that choke off by turning it back to the right. So the normal running position would be both levers to the right. So we've got oil, we've got fuel, we're switched on the switch, we've got our fuel tap on, we've got our choke on, we're ready to pull the recoil and start the machine. So the recoil is here, conveniently placed, and we would just pull the recoil and give a swift pull. Now it is important to note that while we're starting the machine, we do need to pull the trigger on the gun. Otherwise what you'll find is that you're trying to achieve the full pressure output of the machine, you're driving the pump or trying to with a recoil. We don't want to do that because we've got a perfectly good engine for that. So pull the trigger on the lance while you're pulling the recoil. So we pulled the recoil, the engine has started up, we can now let go of the trigger on the lance. The pressure will automatically unload through the pump system, and at this point, within probably a few seconds, we can turn the choke lever off to the right and the machine is now ready to use. So when we finish using the machine, the shutdown procedure, you simply turn the engine off and the engine will come to a stop. You will still have residual pressure in the system. That's where you pull the lance and release the pressure. We can then turn the water off at the mains, just release any extra water that might be in there, and that's the point where you can do any disconnections of the fittings. Just one little safety thing. If you're changing the tips, it's always best to stop the engine, release the pressure before changing tips. And as I said, exactly the same as the quick release fittings on the hose. Pull back the sleeve, change the fitting. And of course, one final thing to remember when shutting down, turn the fuel off at the fuel tap on the carburetor. That's the bottom lever, push it to the left, turn the fuel off. We talked about the detergent nozzle earlier on. So obviously the procedure for this, you've got this detergent pickup hose here with a strainer on. If you've got a gallon container or what have you, of your TFR or whatever your detergent of choice is, you basically can put this pipe down into the detergent. Make sure you have the black tip fixed in your gun. Now this will be low pressure, so you won't get high pressure. This low pressure causes this to start working. You get a vacuum and it'll draw your detergent into the water stream and flow out through the gun and the hose. So always the black tip for use with detergent, and it will be low pressure. So if you watch this video, there's a good chance you bought one of these, so congratulations on your purchase. You really have bought a decent bit of kit here. So for more information on this or any of our other products, visit jcbtools.co.uk. I've been Adrian, and thanks for watching.